Donald Trump on the latest firestorm. But there are people now who say this is unpresidential, that this disqualifies you. Also tonight, powerful floodwaters take down a California highway. After the deadly shootings in Chattanooga, how security is being tightened at military sites. And when an Australian surfer met Jaws, it looked like it was all over down under.
And then all of a sudden I felt my stomach getting pulled underwater.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
Good evening. Scott is off tonight. I'm Charlie Rose. Donald Trump tried again today to put out the fire starter when he appeared to question the heroism of John McCain. We will talk to the Republican presidential contender in just a moment. But first, Nancy Cordes on Trump, his comments, and his critics.
No, after you.
After 2 days of intense blowback, Donald Trump tried to change the subject today, tweeting, "This story is no longer about John McCain. It's about our horribly treated vets." But his opponents weren't quite ready to move on.
You shouldn't be our commander-in-chief because you don't know our military.
South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham was joined by McCain in New York.
John McCain and everybody like him is an American hero.
Trump was at a conservative forum in Ames, Iowa Saturday when he mocked McCain's military service, which included 5.5 years in a Vietnamese prison.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Do you agree with that?
He's a war hero because he was captured, okay? You can have, and I believe perhaps he's a war hero.
Later that day, Trump tried to clarify his views.
If somebody's a prisoner, I would consider that person a war hero.
But the damage was done. The VFW called Trump's remarks despicable. McCain weighed in on MSNBC this morning.
I think he may owe an apology to the families of those who have sacrificed in conflict and those who have undergone the prison experience in serving their country.
Some Republican analysts predict that this will be the flap that does Trump in, but each new controversy seems to drive his poll numbers up. And 3 national polls, Charlie, within the last week have showed him pretty comfortably leading his GOP rivals.
Thanks, Nancy. Donald Trump joins us now on the telephone. Mr. Trump, thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Charlie.
So what do you get out of this fight you're having with the Republican Party, with its candidates, about heroism, about John McCain, and about what is a hero and what is not?
Well, you know, it's very interesting, but it all started when I had 15,000 people in Phoenix a week ago, and he said they're a bunch of crazies, and that was very insulting to those people. They were great people, and they were worrying about illegal immigration, which is a huge problem that I brought up 3 weeks ago, and that was a big firestorm, and it turned out I was right. And then we started the whole thing with the vets because he has done a lousy job, a terrible job with the vets.
There's also this case of people who were not captured. Do you think they are of higher value than those who were captured, just simply to understand the difference between someone who is captured and not captured?
No, I think they're all heroes. And I said that, by the way. I said that. If you look at a few minutes later at the press conference, you will see I said they're all heroes, captured, not captured, other than Sergeant Bergdahl. I said he's not a hero. He's bad news.
Will you run on a third-party ticket if you do not get the Republican nomination?
The best way to win this election is to do it as a Republican for me. So it's not something I want to do. I will say, with that said, many, many people want me to run as an independent. I am only interested in running as a Republican.
Yeah, most people think an independent candidacy is not doable.
Well, it's more difficult, certainly, but I think it is something that's very doable.
So if polling says this was a disaster for you, you will do what?
Well, I think then I probably, I don't know if I made a mistake. I have to get the word out about the veterans and the way they're being treated.
Yeah,
so,
but you didn't do this to get the word out about veterans. You did this because you were not happy with John McCain because he criticized the people who were supporting you on the immigration issue.
That's
and
true.
he called them crazy. That's
true. That's how it started.
Comment is what started this.
Yeah. don't forget, I supported John McCain. I think I raised $1 million or more for John McCain. I raised a lot of money for him when he ran for president, and he lost. And that's understand. You know, people can lose. That's okay.
But you keep taking these shots at him. I mean,
me?
one thing and then another. Then it becomes what he's done for veterans, and it starts off by the fact that he was captured. You keep taking shots at him, and people think that's unpresidential, number one, and they wonder whether you can be magnanimous enough to pick up the phone and call John McCain and say, look, this is not what I intended to say, and this is not what I believe, that you were less than a hero.
And, you know, you could also make the case, Charlie, that he should apologize to the 15,000 people that have been fighting, you know, illegal immigration and are petrified to be living where they're living. He should make the case that they're not crazy. I mean, he should call them and, you know, and really make a statement of apology, because what he said about them was terrible, I think.
Donald Trump, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Charlie. Great honor.
There's extreme weather tonight in many parts of the country. Heat advisories are in effect for 56 million in the east and the deep south. Fresh flood watches and warnings are up in the nation's midsection and the west. Bone dry California got more rain yesterday than it could handle, enough to wash out a bridge on the highway to Arizona. Ben Tracy has more on that. Ben?
Charlie, this is that mangled bridge you mentioned that was washed out by the floodwaters, shutting down the traffic between Los Angeles and Phoenix, all part of a series of storms that were very strong and very rare. Hundreds of drivers found themselves stranded in the middle of the desert after an overpass along California's busy I-10 freeway suddenly became a bridge to nowhere. The bridge collapsed when a swollen creek eroded the hillside, leaving this truck hanging over the edge. It took nearly 2 hours to rescue the injured driver. Mike Radford is with the California Highway Patrol.
This collapsed bridge is going to cause a huge problem for thousands and thousands of people every single day. This is the major corridor from the LA area to out east.
This unusual July rain is the remnants of Tropical Storm Dolores. In Southern California, it caused flash floods, turning streets into fast-moving rivers, forcing road closures and leaving drivers stuck.
This parking lot has now become a river.
In Riverside County, firefighters rushed to protect homes with sandbags and patrolled flooded neighborhoods.
There are a couple people in here that they're trying to rescue.
Watch your step, please!
In Irvine, ticket holders waded through knee-high water to see an outdoor rock concert.
It's really raining, though.
And the wet weather also took out the ball game. The Angels were rained out at home Sunday night for the first time in 20 years. July is normally the driest month of the year in Southern California. More than a quarter inch of rain fell in downtown Los Angeles Saturday, breaking a nearly 220-year-old record. All of that rain, of course, is welcome here in bone dry California, but despite this kind of damage, Charlie, not enough rain to even put a dent in our nearly 4-year-long drought.
Thanks, Ben. Another freeway, I-15, is back open after wildfire swept through on Friday. The fire is now 75% contained. At least 20 cars were destroyed. Others were abandoned when drivers fled. Some have complained that towing companies charge $1,000 to have their cars taken away. We know more tonight about the gunman who shot 4 U.S. Marines and a U.S. Navy sailor to death last week in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Today, security was beefed up at military sites all over the country. We have a series of reports, beginning with Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues in Washington. Jeff.
Charlie, FBI investigators have not turned up a direct link to ISIS or any other terrorist organization overseas, but law enforcement sources confirm that investigators have found pages of notes believed to have been written by the gunman. Law enforcement sources say Mohammed Youssef Abdulaziz wrote about his drug use and how he was influenced by images of death in the Middle East. Family and friends say the 24-year-old was depressed and at times on medication. Officials say Abdulaziz had been seeking religious guidance recently. During an online search, the 24-year-old looked at the writings of U.S.-born Anwar al-Awlaki, among others.
Brothers and sisters,
al-Awlaki, killed in Yemen by a U.S. drone strike in 2011, was a cleric and leading member of al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. He spread his message of jihad in videos and writings. Among his followers, Nidal Hassan, the gunman who shot and killed 13 people at Fort Hood in 2009. Sources say Abdulaziz's writings contain suicidal thoughts, and the FBI is now gathering his medical records. Charlie, investigators are also looking at the 7 months that he spent in Jordan last year, but so far have not turned up any evidence that he met with extremists there.
Thanks, Jeff. Now to the beefed-up security at military sites around the country. Adriana Diaz has that part of the story for us from Indianapolis.
Indiana Governor Mike Pence authorized National Guard troops in his state to carry personal weapons on base.
I will not permit our citizen soldiers to remain unable to defend themselves.
The Pentagon controls who's allowed to carry firearms on U.S. military installations like the Recruitment Center and Marine Navy facility where Mohammed Abdulaziz opened fire Thursday. The National Guard, however, also falls under the command of state governors. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Gilbert oversees military support for the Indiana National Guard.
This has been well received by our soldiers, and it's something that will make our soldiers safer.
6 other states have authorized their guardsmen to be armed. Florida Governor Rick Scott.
And I don't want anything like what happened in Tennessee to ever happen here.
Here in Indiana, the policy is voluntary. Charlie, soldiers will not be forced to be armed.
Thanks, Adriana. Chattanooga remains a city in mourning. Jerika Duncan is there.
What was a crime scene is now sacred ground. Your brother enlisted right here?
Yes.
19-year-old Melissa Dennis says her 22-year-old brother is a Marine based in Australia. He enlisted at the center and knew one of the victims.
This could have easily been my family. You know, my brother, he's coming home in about a month, and he wants to see this exactly as it is when he gets here.
21-year-old Marine Lance Corporal Skip Wells was among those killed. His father, Kip Wells.
They send our service people into harm's way overseas. And that tends to be when we worry about them most. Don't tend to worry so much when they're here at home.
And Charlie, the Chattanooga police officer who was injured in the shootings remains hospitalized tonight.
Thanks, Jerika. Diplomatic relations between the United States and Cuba, broken 54 years ago, were officially restored today. Foreign Affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan witnessed the history-making moment in Washington.
A Cold War standoff faded into history as Cuba raised the flag at its reopened embassy just a few blocks from the White House. In Havana, the U.S. Embassy also reopened, the culmination of more than 2 years of negotiations between the two countries. Cuba's flag now hangs at the State Department, where the Cuban foreign minister met today with Secretary Kerry.
To keep moving forward, both governments must proceed in a spirit of openness and mutual respect. I can assure the world, including the people of Cuba, that the United States will do its part.
A new leader is on the scene, Fidel Castro.
It was Fidel Castro's alliance with the Soviet Union that led the U.S. to cut off relations in 1961.
I have directed the armed forces to prepare for any eventualities.
Just a year before the Cold War nearly became hot when Russia sent nuclear missiles to Cuba.
Algunos.
Now Castro's brother Raul governs a country which is no longer seen as a security threat to the U.S. But differences remain, and the Obama administration has vowed to press the Cuban dictator on human rights violations and economic freedom. Now, the Obama administration hopes the next step will be to lift travel and trade embargoes, but so far Congress has been opposed. And Charlie, next month, Secretary Kerry will visit Havana for a similar celebration and to raise the stars and stripes over the U.S. embassy there.
Margaret Brennan in front of the Cuban embassy in Washington. Thanks, Margaret. The times they are changing. They carry young folks to proms and weddings, but how safe are those stretch limousines? And what happened when a champion surfer realized he was not alone? When the CBS Evening News continues. A deadly crash on Long Island over the weekend is raising questions about the safety of large limousines. A group of young women hired one so they could tour local wineries safely, but 4 of them wound up dead and 4 others seriously injured. Here's Chris Van Cleve.
The limo was making a U-turn when it was broadsided by a suspected drunk driver. Southold, New York Police Chief Martin Flatley.
There's obviously no airbags in the back of the limousine. I am not aware of whether who was wearing seatbelts in the car, if anyone.
This dash camera video shows how dangerous the back of a vehicle can be for a passenger without a seatbelt. In 2013, 55% of backseat passengers killed in crashes were not belted in. There has been a fatal large limo crash every year since 2000, killing at least 45 people. The National Transportation Safety Board is currently preparing safety recommendations following the fatal 2014 limo van accident that injured comedian Tracy Morgan. California has already acted. This 2013 limo fire killed 5 women who were not able to escape the blaze. In response, this month, the Golden State began requiring limos to have an additional emergency exit and occupants be provided a safety briefing. This dash camera caught the moment a drunk driver slammed head-on into the limo carrying Neil Flynn and his family. 7-year-old Katie was killed despite wearing a seatbelt.
My younger daughter was robbed of her best friend. My sons will have no real memory of Kate. They were simply too young when she was taken from us. But there isn't a minute or an hour, much less a day, that goes by where we don't think about her.
This limo is equipped with passenger seat belts, but only 28 states require adults in the back of vehicles to buckle up. Charlie, the investigation on Long Island is in its very early stages.
Thanks, Chris. What caused a rocket bound for the space station to explode? What investigators found next. Investigators now believe they know what caused a SpaceX rocket to explode just after liftoff last month. Today, the company's founder, Elon Musk, said it appears a steel strut snapped inside the Falcon 9 rocket. That set off a catastrophic chain reaction. The rocket was unmanned. It was supposed to deliver supplies to the space station. 46 years ago tonight, Neil Armstrong became the first man to walk on the moon. The space suit he wore is deteriorating. And today, the National Air and Space Museum launched an online campaign to raise $500,000 to preserve the historic suit and build a new display for it. The head of soccer's world governing body had an unpleasant encounter with the protesters today in Switzerland. Sepp Blatter was about to outline his plans to reform FIFA after the corruption scandal when a man came up to him and threw fake money in the air. Blatter was not hurt. The protester, a British comedian, was arrested. Folks who turned out to watch a surfing contest instead witnessed a life or death struggle on live television. We'll have you that next. Finally, this tonight, there was no time to panic and nowhere to hide. When Mick Fanning encountered the predator of South Africa, survival mode kicked in. And Deborah Potta has our report.
Instead of fighting waves, the 3-time world champion Mick Fanning found himself fighting for his life. As the Australian waited on his surfboard for another shot at the title, he sensed a presence behind him.
And then all of a sudden I felt it started getting pulled underwater, and then the thing came up and I was on my board, and it was like right there I saw the whole thing just thrashing around.
Fanning, hidden from the cameras by a wave, managed to punch the shark on the back.
It was dragging me. I felt like it was just dragging me underwater, and then all of a sudden my leg rope broke and I was like, all right, just start swimming. I was swimming and screaming.
He shouted to his fellow finalist Julian Wilson to get to safety, but instead his friend and rival swam towards him.
So he got knocked off his board, and then like a little wave popped up, and I was like, oh, he's gone. Like he's gone under. I felt like I couldn't get there quick enough.
Back home in his native Australia, Fanning's mother, Elizabeth Osborne, watched the entire drama unfold live on TV.
This is absolutely terrifying. I actually got up and walked across to the television because I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I thought we'd lost him.
Within minutes, the men were rescued. The harrowing experience has not deterred Fanning from getting back in the water.
Are you going to go back and surf?
I'll surf again for sure. Like, you know, surfing's given me so much.
And that now includes a second chance at life. Deborah Patter, CBS News, Jeffreys Bay, South Africa.
A story to tell the rest of your life. I fought a shark and lived to tell about it. That's the CBS Evening News. For Scott Pelley, I'm Charlie Rose in New York. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you first thing tomorrow on CBS This Morning. Good night.